welcome. Tonight is Wednesday, May 3rd. This is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Ed meeting. Can all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You want to do the public hearing on the budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
New York State law requires that every school district in New York State hold a public hearing on their budget that they will put before voters. Today is that public hearing. We have been talking about our school budget formally since January after the new year. We have received, to the best of our knowledge, our final state aid runs, yet things always change. But this is an opportunity for the public to make comment on our budget, and seeing as how there are no visitors here, I recommend we close the public hearing.
Okay. And just vote and
can just-
accept the budget as that this is the budget we're going to present?
We already approved the
We already
budget.
approved the
We
budget.
just
So then we're
got
good.
the
All right,
legal
so then-
requirement.
We're good. Okay. And it really doesn't require further conversation. So, all right. Can I then we will close the public hearing on the budget vote. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? I am pulling one item off of it, so the agenda as presented. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
One item will be pulled, and that is personnel agenda number 8, and we'll address that at a later meeting. Are there any other items anybody would like pulled from the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda beyond that item? Second? All those in favor? Okay, so that brings us to items off the consent agenda, which would be donations. And we have 3 donations. And there is a donation of $22,250 for Furnace Woods Elementary, and that is a employee from New York Life made a donation, and for $2,250. Thank you very much to that employee, and I guess it's one of the matching type things.
Yes,
So,
that's good.
and thank you for that. The Hendrick Hudson High School has received a donation from. I'm sorry, not the district has received a donation, or the high. I'm not sure how that goes. There was a donation made to go towards the Future Business Leaders group for in the amount of $10,000. It was a community member who is anxious to support that program and the upcoming trip when they go to nationals. And that is in the amount of $10,000. The Furnace Woods Elementary School received a donation from the foundation, the HHCEF, $4,000 to fund the costs of purchasing benches and landscaping for the school circle ahead of the 50th anniversary. So we have 3 donations: $1,000, $10,000, and $2,250 to the district and the schools. Can I get a motion to approve these donations? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So the next item is the superintendent's report. I am bypassing audience comments.
Okay, we have a concert tonight and some other matters, and not a whole lot of people here, so I'll keep my comments
Lost 2 board
brief.
members.
That's how we lost 2 board members. This is assessment time again. 3rd graders through 8th graders are taking the New York State Math Assessment. High schoolers are taking AP exams, so we are in testing mode. We're also starting to enter award ceremony time. Seniors are applying for end-of-year scholarships to the various agencies and entities that provide them. A number of us are going to go to the valedictorian, salutatorian award ceremony and dinner in 2 weeks in Terrytown. That's always a nice opportunity. And shifting gears to Indian Point, I had the opportunity to meet with the governor's education secretary last Friday. That was a meeting that he was interested in understanding where we were in terms of our planning and advocacy efforts. Also, any questions we had in terms of what our expected outcomes are with participating in the governor's task force. And the governor's task force will commence on May 31st. That is a task force the governor put together and named a number of people to. I'm one of them. And our interest will be to make sure that we have legislation, that we have additional funding, and that we understand essentially how we can increase our state aid and what opportunities the state will provide us as Indian Point begins its phase down and as our pilot revenue begins to phase out. So things I think will heat up again at the end of the month, and it's a public meeting but not a meeting with the public. So if you want to attend, we'll get the information out, but it's I think 7:30 p.m. at the Town of Cortland Town Hall on May 31st, and we'll keep everyone in the loop. And I'll leave it at that.
Did you, excuse me, Joe, did you go to the April 26th conference with Mr. Bleasy and task force?
The local task force meeting, yes.
Yes, how'd that go? Or did you just report on it? I missed it.
No, I reported on what we anticipate the governor's task force to include. The local task force, which was last week, included a presentation from a non-for-profit group in the New England area who has been studying the impact of nuclear power plant closures in that area. And there have been a number that have closed. And that's a relationship we'll continue to build for a number of reasons. They've lived it. They've written about it. They even have developed undergrad and graduate courses at University of Massachusetts about it. So it was more of a lessons learned and some opportunities for us to avoid some pitfalls that perhaps they had. But the issues regarding the agencies and the municipalities are so specific, and there is overlap and there also isn't overlap. For example, the education agencies in Vermont were not hit all that hard with a revenue gap because of the way those schools in Vermont are funded. The way we're funded is uniquely different, but we're going to schedule some follow-up conversations and maybe even a visit with them. One of the chief researchers is also a Vermont state senator who deals specifically with education policy in Vermont. So that will be an interesting follow-up and relationship we have.
It was different because Vermont schools are funded differently in terms of the property tax that they took in off of. They didn't get the same amount of revenue that we did to begin with.
Yeah, correct. Yep. So their issues with the property, with the power plant closure, were not as financial, but they were brain drain. They were property value or housing market issues, those sort of things. But it wasn't necessarily school funding dried up and what do you do about it. But there are some universal lessons learned that we'll continue to connect with them and learn from, and spend some time as we prepare for this inevitable thing to happen in 4 years.
And thank you for participating in those meetings along the way. This has been quite a tumultuous year since January.
It's been a long year since January. Yeah.
So you're saying that when a nuclear power plant closes, kind of like dog years in the superintendent?
We've become, Enrique and I have become experts in nuclear energy and all of that kind of stuff. Sadly, but yes, we've learned quite a bit.
But I know that both of you have invested a lot of time and effort in learning these things and building those relationships that'll get us down the road in the future. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to committee reports. I know policy committee has met, but that's a topic for the next presentation. Any other committee reports?
We were, both Charles and I were supposed to go to BV, but
Charles had a personal issue, and I had my children still moving on with me. So
I know the PTAs are going, and they're getting to the point where they're getting ready for their fairs and wind downs and their fairs. So I know that's a big piece right now for them. The committee reports, I think, with it's been pretty quiet. So I think as
Yeah,
everything's
policy
ramped up.
work, yep.
So yeah, no, the policy is which there you go. It's a natural segue. Our first presentation will be the first reading of policy number 5314, emergency interventions. And Barbara, I'll let you
right,
address that.
we have all talked about this policy, and we've spoken about adding an introductory
Let's
sentence.
start reading it.
Right. If alternative procedures and methods, which
Move to waive.
Okay. That's it. So now, the purpose of this emergency interventions, was there some?
Yeah,
That inspired
it
this?
came out of a natural progression of continuing to build opportunities for students in our ABC program. As you know, this year we kicked off the first cohort of students in our ABC program in our high school. And we knew way back when we built this program, that we wanted to have a continuum of service from early elementary age all the way through 12th grade. So looking at our policies and procedures as older students entered the high school, Lynn and some of her colleagues were researching what we need to do to strengthen our policies, our procedures, and also staff training around working with students and when the need arises to work with students physically. And this is a policy that we lifted language both from the New York State School Boards Association, but also local districts who have programs very similar to the ABC program. And we don't have a policy, so this is a good thing to have. It talks about documentation procedures. It talks about training and the role that staff play and administrators play in keeping students safe, both for themselves and for the health and safety of others. So it's probably a topic we haven't had to discuss as an organization, but a very good one to have, especially as we build our ABC high school program. Lynn, I don't know if you have any other...
And just always that we keep in mind that we want to use our voice first to de-escalate behavior, and a physical restraint would be the last thing we want to do. But as the kids are getting older and they're getting more aggressive, it is important that for the safety of the staff and safety of the students that we have something in place, and the policy has to back that up.
What are we talking, like when you say emergency interventions, like the right of somebody to just hold the kid, or, I mean, what constitutes a...
Yeah, in the
You know, a
event that
response.
they might have to block a student or to hold a student a particular way. Obviously, we wouldn't encourage that to happen until they went through training that we know we're very aware of, that we would put staff through. It's a 2-day training, and we'd like to train 20 people in district from elementary to high school. So yes, in the event of a physical...
what constitutes, we're talking about emergency interventions, what is under that, umbrella of a term? What, I mean, is...
It could be a student who is coming face to face with a staff member, maybe pushing a staff member, biting a staff member. It could be a student normally who we have elopement plans. If we have a student who might want to leave the building, but if we need to restrain them, it would be something like that. In the event that they just were needed to be restrained due to aggression in the classroom, going after another student, maybe restrained in that.
You're suggesting that, like, and again, I'm just an adult physically restraining, a trained adult
Trained,
physically
yes.
restraining that child and holding him or her in place, not hurting, but in place to just contain that child.
as a last resort,
Absolutely.
and with research-based strategies and training.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you're in a situation as a teacher where a child is is very badly out of control and could potentially hurt another student, and that's your last resort.
That's
is-
its protection
right,
of others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that. It's not just our special ed children, it's also general ed children. You know, so it's a umbrella for all of the children in our district.
And you're talking 20 people being trained?
Yeah,
And then
actually,
turnkey.
16 people would go through a 2-day training, and then the other 4 would be turnkey trainers in the district. And so they would be retrained every year and recertified, and could train a whole new host of people as well as recertify.
I was going to say, I appreciate that, but I was going to say over 5 buildings, I don't know that 20 is really a sufficient number. I mean, if something's happening, what are the odds that one of those 4, you assume, 5 people, 20 divided by 5, one of those 4 people is close enough to respond as quickly as would be needed.
20 people are the first cohort, so to speak,
Okay.
trained by the company, and then our 4 people that would be turnkey
Train
trainers
others.
could train provide ongoing training.
Yeah, so it would be, ultimately, would be more than 20 individuals who would be
Yes.
trained in this.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
We
It's
discussed-
on,
We discussed this a couple of years ago originally.
We did.
In the STEPS program.
It's actually a program called Handle with Care.
And
And if you look at their website, you'll see, the importance of that training, first day training in verbal de-escalation, and then the second day in physical.
well, this is the first reading, so,
so
I
have
look
we
forward
actually
to getting
done-
Carol and Lisa's input as well.
Well, I'm trying to get clarity on. We're writing a policy, but we haven't actually done the training yet. So
They-
we need the policy before we do the
They
training.
recommend that we have the policy in place before we do the training, in the event that if we do have a physical restraint, that we're covered. Yes.
Okay. So when is the training?
We're looking at the end of June or early July to do the training.
So for the next year, going into next
Right.
year. And as Barbara mentions, we're talking about it in the context of the ABC program, which are autistic children, but
It's not just
the people
yeah.
who are trained would be able to interact with any student in the building.
Correct. Yep, and I've reached out to principals, and we've selected certain people in the district that we feel would be the first good go-to people for that first round of training.
And it's important to keep underscoring this is, last resort. That
So
there are a
it's like-
series of strategies, just like in the classroom, RTI, same sort of concept. But we have to build the repertoire of those strategies, but it may include working with kids, that physically.
No, but it's important, again, it's other children around,
Right.
so they're the ones that, you have to be concerned about them as well, so.
And
And
sometimes,
it is last resort.
Yes.
people will say, well, it's a very small child. But a lot of times when you have a very small child that is totally out of control, they can be just as strong as
Yep.
a larger child.
Or
So,
adult.
yes, sometimes even more so.
Yes. All right, so this will come back, and I will, I'm sure Lori as well will have some input, because I know she's on the policy committee as well. All right, so that will come back probably the next meeting. So that brings us to, I can't even believe this is going to be that is it. And it's audience comments. Our next board, this is a light one today, yes. It brings us to board comments, new business.
Yeah, as a committee of one, I'd like to thank our administrators, our principals. For the last 2 board meetings, we've had high school, middle school, and the elementary school reports. And this year's has been very good. Our principals have reflected on the challenges that they have. They've put a great deal of thought into working with their staff. And I've greatly enjoyed these these high school, the academic reports this year. I just wanted to compliment the principals and the staff for the work that they've done this year. And to our administrators, too. Thank you.
It was done very, very nicely, very professionally. Thank you as well.
We're supposed to have a meet and greet on the 13th. Are we continuing that?
We thought we would keep it because it's the last meet and greet before the budget. We have had, I think, 3 meet and greets this year, and turnout has not been what anyone thought it would be. We had a couple regulars, and it was a nice time, but I don't think it's had the impact that we really wanted to have. And I think there are a couple ways of looking at it. You could say people are satisfied, we're good to go. The other way of looking at it is we put a lot of information in front of people, including board meetings that are videotaped and the agendas and decisions and those sort of things. So
I would say it's a combination of the two.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
as you know, when you run into somebody at the post office or they share their concerns, they don't necessarily come to the meet and greets on a Saturday morning, though. So we will have it just because of the upcoming board vote, just to give people a last chance to express their concerns or get some answers if they've not been able to discern it else some other way. But so that will happen. That's May 13th, and that's in a week and a half. Other than that, our next meeting thereafter will be the board vote, which is on May 16th. It's a Tuesday. It's going to be over at Frank G. Lindsay, as always, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The high school art shows that day, but there will be a tenure reception. So we will be having our board meeting at the high school, here at the high school, over in the cafeteria from 6:30 to 7:15. We will then have a short meeting and then go over and get the board, the vote results. We have 2 individuals that are running for 2 seats, so that's pretty much a slam dunk. And if Barbara votes for herself, well, you got my vote, so
I'm in.
You're in. So you're in. So that will be.
That'll go to Enrique's wife.
Get your head examined, exactly. So that's in 2 weeks from last night. It is Tuesday, May 16th, with the meet and greet prior to that. So I would ask that any individuals, please, the information is all online. Please look. If you have any questions, please come to the meet and greet. But the budget book is online. It's available, and please come out and vote on May 16th. Can I get a motion to close? All those in favor?
Aye.